All right, we have got 4 formal applications to review tonight, starting with ARB number 6, 2022. It's sale to Sable at 1082 Boston Post Road in the NHR zone. I believe we have Lisa Elwell here from Baywater presenting, but introduce yourself and your company and what you guys are looking to do.
Okay. Lisa Elwell, Baywater Properties, and we're representing the owner of the building, landlord Baywater, but also the tenant, Jen Stalker, who owns Sale to Sable. So at this location, Sakari used to be here. They moved in November to their new spot at 1292 Post Road. And Jen came to David and said, I really want to do a pop-up for my mail order business, Sale to Sable, for the holidays. It ended up being such a huge success, and she did so well, she wanted to make it a full-time location in this location, and she will continue to be a tenant in the project, the Corridor District. So for her, we have a facade sign. We are currently in that location. There were 3 black lights that we should like to remove, replace with 2 white ones. 2 because it's more proportionate with the sign that we would propose. Sale to Sable, the cabana is kind of her tagline for the shop and what she calls it.
What's her tagline for the shop?
The cabana.
Got it.
And then we also updated the window vinyls to be all white and smaller and more to scale. The window graphics came in late, so I have copies I can share with you.
I'm passing along the picture that I took this afternoon of where the storefront stands right now with the 3 black lights, a
Yeah.
different sign above the
Okay,
door.
perfect.
So that there's a reference for.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So there you have it.
And the sign, recap for us, I know you have here the sign dimensions and material,
Yep,
Lisa?
Yep, so the sign is 16 inches tall. And it is aluminum pan painted, Pantone special colors, a pink, a blue, and a white. Her fonts are all custom choreographed, calligraphy. It's a custom design she does. The lights above will be 27 inches from the facade. We'll do 2 of them, and they're 15.5 inches in diameter.
And the full name of the business is Sale to Sable?
Sale to Sable.
The cabana, that's the full
cabana,
name.
correct.
The cabana is part of the business name, or is it
It is, she's
tagline?
incorporated it in part. Sale to Sable is her mail order business,
Okay.
so the storefront is Sale to Sable, the cabana. She's been in business a long time, she's a Darien resident.
Thank you.
And she's doing really well, the town really loves her, and it's been fun. She does events all the time, has people over, it's been good.
Just to clarify, so the one picture you sent, like I've seen 2 of these, the cabana with the small sable, this is the new proposed sign, or the one Sale to Sable?
Yeah, that-
This is the,
Yeah, this is
Okay, so
the
make
one
sure.
I sent in the package, I think you
Okay.
just sent
I
that
just
for
sent what's
reference.
on this,
Yeah.
on the storefront
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
thank you.
I should have labeled it.
Oh.
He just wanted you to see that there's currently 3 black goose lights
Okay.
that were there, which were better for an awning that used to
And
be
the sign
there
is different in
previously.
its design.
This is much smaller in
Smaller
scale to
sign.
the dimensions allowed by the ARB.
And Lisa, do you have the width of the sign? It got cut off here, is it
Yeah.
10?
Yes,
10?
mine's cut off too,
Can't be 10, that's not right.
The width of the sign is
No.
49 inches. or
49?
49 inches.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, you said the window vinyls are gonna be smaller and in white?
Yep, I'll show them to you. We did them in white, we updated them so they would be to scale
Short term.
and not so
Yeah.
busy with the multicolors.
Yeah.
So in terms of,
Yeah, we did them in white.
in
Yeah.
terms of regulation for the size of the sign, it's right on the money in terms of linear feet of storefront.
There you go.
Thank you.
You have the
welcome.
calculation, it's exactly .33, so
Perfect.
the new sign.
Okay.
This one is too big.
Okay,
The existing one is
Right.
bigger.
These are, okay, perfect.
Yeah, the sign that's currently up there was
That's
done
what I was-
quickly for the,
That's perfect, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Lisa, when is this building due to be wrecked and starting renovation?
We are targeting early 2023.
Yeah, that's okay.
When the first phase is complete, we'll move them over early 2023 to the phase that's under construction now. Sale to Sable will be, moved over there. So this is short term.
Okay,
For short term, it's a pretty nice looking graphic.
it is for a short
Yeah,
time.
right, she wants to do it right, she wants it to look good.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's things
why she-
around town that are not short term, that are not
yeah, she
nice.
wanted to do the white lights to make it look right, it'll look good.
They will look good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything?
I will.
Yeah.
It's bothering me that the sign isn't centered on one of the windows.
That's what I was looking for.
And I don't know if it deserves 2 gooseneck lights, maybe 1.
Lisa Rebecca Morrison, ARB, I agree that, I went by it actually, because I was, looking at the whole row. The most distinctive, if that is the storefront, it's the door and the 2 windows, the most distinctive portion of that whole entire storefront is the division between the 2 windows. And I think what Leslie's saying, but I think it, because I went by it to see what they're all like that.
Right.
But like, because only 1/4 out of 3/4 is on one side of the window and not the other, it looks askew.
Right, so you'd rather it centered with the windows, not the facade, the
Yeah.
storefront?
Yeah.
That's fine, that's easy to do.
Yeah.
I agree that too.
Okay.
It's very disconcerting.
Either that or move Cabana over, so that it's more
On the front door.
centered on the, centered on the 2 windows and not on the front door, but like, make it more linear than, make it wide, the length longer versus the height. Because right now, what's happening is, like I said, is that 1/4 is on one side and 3/4 is on the other. And
That's why
so,
they work with the 3 lights, because they're installed right now. It's
We
one
can,
of-
we can
The
move
light
them.
can move.
Yeah, they're on the.
I think the graphic itself looks really nice,
Yeah.
it's
So we
just
can-
that division is really,
So I agree, if we center it over the windows,
Mhm.
I think that'll look great.
Okay.
So, but do you feel like you're okay with the 2 light fixtures?
Oh, you're talking about one window you're centering it over, not.
No, 2,
on-
the 2 big retail ones,
It's right in the center of the 2 windows.
that's where it will be,
All right, so it's not moving, it's moving
to the
in
right.
this way.
To the
It's
right.
compared
To the
to
right.
just being the top of one window.
yeah.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's going to the right, over the center
Yeah.
of the 2, right?
Center more in.
I think I'd rather put it to the left, if that's all right.
I tried to figure out exactly how the other signs were,
This one here.
but most of them are long,
I know, but
Right.
it
right?
looks
And
all
so this
there,
is a
but
little
why
bit
here?
more
So we
narrow.
went- we took
So
as
So
much of the.
it needs to go one direction or the other,
Right,
right?
Yeah.
Like it needs to either,
yes.
Well, if it goes toward the door, it would be right closer to the
If
the
it-
front door.
it looks like, it almost looks like it would, the sign is how many inches long?
49.
It's 49, looks like it
49.
would line up with the window.
Right, so it could line up directly in the middle of one window or in
Yeah.
the center of 2, but just being between the 2
It looks
is
like a
making it
mistake
little
where
off.
it is,
Yeah,
that's all.
Exactly.
And it should be, I think having it closer to the front door and some of that window would probably let her better on the center of the building, but maybe not. You're way on the end here, to the end of your whole space, to the right, correct? That's the end of the, that's the end of your showroom.
Right,
You don't wanna be on the end.
I'm fine with it centered on one of the windows, the one closer to the door. It just, right now where it
Panel.
is, it's not.
Okay.
either over the middle panel or centered over the 2.
Exactly.
Well,
What would you all prefer? We could make it work either way.
I think, in my mind, it's dependent on how far it is from the other 2 sides, right? Like you want it sort of
So it's equal.
as close as possible.
If
why don't
you're
we
gonna
take
do
a
it.
vote?
Yeah.
I think you guys can decide. When we give you guys recommendations,
Okay.
set it over the window set or one of the windows.
Perfect.
Whatever looks better.
Okay.
Any comments on the 2 gooseneck versus 1?
I think the 2 is fine.
It's better.
And
As
two is
a
appropriate.
side.
Yeah, I think so, great, thank you. Would like to, like, it's nice when you see them in the evening and it's bright, new lit, it's nice.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, there was the issue of the vinyl decals on the glass. That is also another form of signage,
Yep,
which
she,
this panel is about.
yep, she showed us that, that's
Fine,
good, the
right.
reduction there is good.
So
Yep,
the reduction is fine with you
The
guys.
white,
so-
smaller white ones,
Yeah,
yep, those look
the
good.
smaller white ones are,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so I put that on record.
yep, you got it.
All right, thanks, Lisa, I'll get you a letter with favorable report.
Thank you
Go ahead
very
in the
much,
meantime.
appreciate it.
All right, see you on the streets.
Yes. Definitely.
All right, guys, next up, ARB number 15, 2022. This is Darien Kitchen and Bath, 1897 Boston Post Road. I think I either have Tammy Harris or Alex Poon.
Yeah, this is Alex Poon.
Okay. Alex, introduce yourself and what your role is in your company, and then go over your proposal. Give us a quick review of your proposal, please.
Quick, like, we do, kitchen and bath, which mean like, kitchen cabinet, countertop.
What is your role? Your Alex Poon, what's your job, what's your title, what's your company?
My title would be like, manager
Okay,
of the,
you're manager of Darien Kitchen and Bath?
yes.
Okay, great. And what are you looking to do? We've got the papers, but in your words, give us a brief overview of what you'd like to do.
Just, this is brand new kitchen, no, it's brand new building, so we just put like whatever the landlord to approve the outside also,
Okay.
So it will be a center of our storefront, design. It's Darien kitchen and bath, that's it.
Do you have, do you have the materials for your sign listed anywhere?
The material is other cut, like, it's plastic, like,
Oh, thank you.
like, it's a plastic, sign.
It says right here, there's acrylic dimensional letters.
Excellent.
Okay. That are applied directly to the
The way
facade?
it looks like it's pen
And
mounted,
then again.
if I were to make an interpretation.
the letters.
I'm interpreting what I think I see, but I kinda wanna hear it from you to make sure you guys are doing it versus we're telling, and make sure it's clear.
Well, the letters are put separately down, right?
You mean,
How are the letters affixed to the wall? Or to the outside, right, that's what we're
the
asking.
letter?
Yeah.
Yes, how are they affixed?
Do you know how they're stuck onto the wall?
I think the school is.
Right,
Okay.
but it's not a sign.
They're not being placed on a signboard, which is then being put on the wall, correct?
I think they would be sideboard, stick it on the wall.
Oh, that's not.
Individually though, each letter different, not
Oh, so-
on a plaque.
Yeah, right, so, either way, if you say individual letter or the whole piece that with the black and white, black letter and the white, background,
There's
Yeah,
a
it's
little
pen,
bit
it's
more
pen
information, but,
It's pen.
yeah,
It's gotta
it
be-
indicates pen is 1/2 inch from wall, letters 3/8 of an inch thick.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So if the text got cut off a little bit.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
But that's
Okay,
it,
and the
that's it's
letters
onto
are
the wood walls,
Right
so,
height.
Yeah,
so that means it's
Can't
not
read
on,
this.
it's not mounted on the board, I don't think, it's
Okay.
directly
I think they're
onto the
individual,
wall.
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they're just,
Which
Just
is,
the one
Yep.
each
Yeah, right,
letter.
on the-
Okay,
you're gonna have
alright.
to be really
I think we
precise and how
understand.
straight those letters are.
Do you know the height of this fascia board? Because it looks awfully tight with the 9-inch letters. It looks a little
I
bit
think,
crowded.
when I take this picture, it's, he just gave me one straight like line, to put the sign. But I think, I forget, take another picture. Right now, he changed that. He put the signage like a little bit bigger in the center of the sofa.
I'm just wondering
It-
if the size of this fascia is, 10 inches, you only have 1/2 inch top to bottom. it's a little tough
Yeah,
to tell
it
from
will
this
be little tight, little
It's-
level.
It is,
crowd. I'm just
I think
wondering
it's
whether.
too crowded too.
Yeah,
also
I don't know if
think
the graphic's 100% accurate. Because look at the brick, count the brick.
It may not be to scale, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
So what would be your recommendation? If it is, how much space would you like on the top and bottom to have it fit in there comfortably to look, and to not look crowded? Would we have a width we would recommend from the top and the bottom that we could give these guys? If the letters are 9 inches.
Just an inch, but
One to one and a quarter.
You get your three bricks underneath there, that's an 8-inch total, so that could give you a scale if you wanted.
Oh, yeah, so this
Yeah, it looks
is
like it's
definitely
about a
bigger
foot
than,
from- fascia.
Yeah.
It'd be grading a little bit more, I
Hmm.
think, too.
It will be.
yeah, there's a little more room. That's probably a 12-inch board.
Yeah, 3 bricks.
Yeah,
It's 8
And I'm
inch.
not so great with math.
And it looks like
It looks like it's 8 inches.
36 inch,
Names on there.
36-inch height.
I would say it's about 7-inch letters.
But he's saying it's
I think it's a little.
No, it's
closer to
too crowded.
11.
I think we need the size of this,
It's not accurate.
the height of this fascia board, so that we know
No,
it's 9 inches, then the
no,
fascia should be 11 inches or
Even
greater.
what size letter would you put
11
on, 7,
inch.
8,
You mean the
For-
height?
the size of the letter?
Yeah,
So,
but we need to know the exact dimension
Right.
of that fascia board. I'm just making a quick little scale.
that fascia board,
Mhm.
if you would
If
you're
I
gonna
still- even whether
propose
it
9 inch
still
lettering,
needs
we need to
more
know that
space.
that fascia
Yeah.
board is 11
It has to
inches,
have more
hopefully a
space.
little bit more in height. That way you have enough room top and bottom, above and below the letters to give it a little bit of room. Right now it looks really crowded. This may not be to scale,
Uh-huh.
but if you can measure that and find out how tall it is, then we can determine the maximum height of the letters.
Okay.
If it's only 10 inches, then our recommendation would be to reduce the size of those letters a little bit, to,
Mhm.
8 inches, maybe a little bit more.
I
Okay.
agree.
Absolutely.
Because we also have to think about, there's gonna be a couple other shops in here, and if they're all this kind of crunched into that fascia board, it's not gonna look right.
It's well said.
Just a quick scaling, like taking measurement off the bricks. It looks like it could be 11, maybe 12 inches, but to your point, that the proportions need to be, you know, appropriate to the
Like we have
to
a,
the face.
like Court Street, you know, it's the same landlord building, you know, and then they just very little, letter and very soft, small sign over there.
Yeah,
Court Street, adjacent Court Street, on this building.
What about, I mean, you have to have a little space underneath the letters and a little space above the letters. If you really want those to set out, they can't be sitting right down on the bottom. I think that's really the important thing. They're sitting down on something, and they have to have a little space under them to frame them a little.
Tell me, is there anything else, you guys, before I can summarize this for Mr. Poon, but is there anything else, any other comments beyond just
It's
the?
the crowding,
Yes,
Can we have the address put in the door?
yes.
adding the address to the door?
Address to your suite, put in the door?
Address?
Yeah, with a vinyl letter?
Yeah, did we go through this?
1897.
1897.
Do we have this problem across the way, though? I think that they did a plaque that went, a ground sign, that was the address of the whole building,
Yeah,
right?
that was a
Yeah.
couple.
So I don't think there's individual addresses for each of these.
But if these 1897A, 1897B.
I don't think that, like, we didn't do, we debated this across the street with Roost and the barber shop, and we didn't do it because it was, the whole site was 1882.
But when I'm looking at these pictures, there's no numbers on the building either.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna come, I think the Vaqueros are gonna,
We need the number on.
I'll make a note that there's gotta be an address somewhere on here, okay.
There are only 2 stores over there, only mine and the other one will be a coffee shop.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna make a note on your letter that says you need the address depicted somewhere on the site. We always say preferably on the door, but if you're sharing the address with your fellow tenant, then,
Yes.
It's gotta be on the building.
yeah, it's gotta be on the building.
And then my recommendation would be, well, what's the post office gonna do? Is this suite A or suite B? And they could put A in the door and B in the other door.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Anything else?
Regarding the actual, how the sign's depicted and us feeling like it's a little crowded, I'm gonna give you a favorable report pending a final PDF review. I need you to send a new PDF to planning and zoning staff members that shows an accurate depiction of the size of the letters and as they relate to this sign band.
Okay,
And show what the space is above, what the space is as, based when you measure the sign band,
okay,
work the calculations out for us on what it is top, bottom, and the actual letters.
okay,
And we'll review that administratively via email, and we'll either send a small adjustment or we'll approve as presented.
okay, very good.
But this picture here, we're saying this is, hoping this is inaccurate and we are not supportive of this crowded. Does that make sense?
Understand,
Okay.
makes sense.
Great.
The only extra comment I had was that, in the regulation for Darien, there would be the possibility to do a secondary sign on the parking end. He would have at least 7 square feet, and he could do smaller lettering facing the parking if he wanted to. This is not proposed tonight, but just for the applicant to know that, because right now it's only saying Darien Kitchen and Bath on that side. People are gonna be parking on the corner. If they needed a reminder, there's room to put maybe a slightly smaller, but I don't know if it would look okay, because then this one is 10 square feet right now. 10.1 square feet overall.
Got it.
Is a blade sign allowed?
Hmm?
Is a blade sign?
Blade sign is allowed in addition to wall signs, yes.
Okay, yeah, just a question, not
Yeah,
recommending.
no, I
or
would
just-
recommend
just-
it.
But with this kind of facade, it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah,
There's a lot
I don't
of
think it's
glass.
perfect, but I
No.
just, if you're presenting what his options are, then I think.
Yeah.
it should be-
But I believe though, if the Vaquero, the property owners come back with a monument ground sign, that would then fill
The role.
the role. And
Mhm.
there is a possibility they're going to name this site with a ground sign and address.
But they did do a ground sign across the
They
street?
did do ground sign,
They did.
yeah, right?
Yeah, because we were
You love that
mentioning,
landscaping across the street.
because we were mentioning, about visual lines for kids coming out of the driveway.
Mhm.
Yes,
I remember we had that conversation.
and it says parking in rear, yeah. Okay, awesome. All right,
Okay,
that was a lot of debating. Were we clear? Did I summarize enough? Or do you say, okay.
okay, thank you.
But I will give you a letter that says a favorable report, so you can proceed by sending it, but with a new PDF to these guys.
Okay,
And once we get that, then you're able to finish your application.
okay, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coon. All right, guys. ARB number 16, 2022, we have the complete angler at 319 Boston Post Road. This is the SB zone. We've seen this building a few times. It's actually changed hands. I know I've seen it at least twice change hands. I know a bunch of you guys have. So it's fun to see yet another tenant coming here. So hi,
Hi.
introduce yourself and
Sure.
what your title is and your business and.
Sure, contrary to the minutes, I'm not Amy Zedetak.
Yes.
I'm Paul Harris of Paul Harris Associates.
Okay.
We're representing the owner, or actually the pending owner. My client is in the process of buying this building, and he will be moving, also the Complete Angler, which is a local established business, into that. And I also have here Kate Throckmorton from ELS, because of the way the site is and the impact of landscaping as part of the program, we felt it was important that Kate came along as well.
Kate, if you're going to be speaking, I'd love you to come up, grab a chair, or stand at the podium, so you are engaged with us just as much. You don't need to be shy here.
No, and just for the record, Kate Throckmorton, licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions.
Kate, can you spell your last name?
Certainly, THROCKMORTON.
Wow, from ELS. Okay, thanks, Kate.
Great.
All right,
Okay.
Paul. So we're familiar with it, but yeah, give us a summary and
Sure, so,
we'll
you know,
discuss.
I'm sure you all know the building. It used to be it was originally designed to be a restaurant. It's become a couple other things, including a gym. There are some violations with the building that we'll be correcting, going to Planning and Zoning Commission. And the existing building right now is kind of a loose colonial style, with kind of a multi-brick. It was kind of designed as a kind of a commercial strip building. After the building was completed, there was a kind of a weather vestibule that was added to the front, not terribly well, but that's on. And With a limited budget, what we kind of want to try to do is transform the look of the building. And since the Complete Angler is an established fly fishing store, we want to make it look a little bit of that kind of vernacular, maybe even kind of emulate a fishing lodge.
What's the vernacular of a fly fishing store?
Well, it would be something you'd find along the back of a dirt road somewhere, I guess, or a coastal area. Harvey and I talked about,
We have some in Maryland.
Okay.
yeah, just a few.
Okay.
They're all up and down the eastern seaboard, and I've actually been shopping here since it was opened, and I only buy stuff there for stuff that we do in southern waters. But it's loose fishing lodge. So it could be fishing lodge in the Adirondacks, as Mr. Hammond and I had a discussion about, or it could be in Vermont, or it could be in Maryland, and they all look a little different. So we're just trying to capture a little essence there and change kind of the aesthetic of the building. And there is some present elements there that we're trying to retain and not reinvent the wheel. Again, because of limited budget on the building. So we felt the biggest bang for the dollar would be to kind of readdress what the building facade looked like. So we're kind of running this porch across the front of the building. It's kind of freestanding and below the existing gable that's there, with a series of columns. It actually covers a handicap ramp that comes up, the original stoop that old vestibule covered, and then a kind of an extended stoop slash patio, whatever you want to call it, that the previous owner had put in without a permit, which we're also in the process of getting approved. We're going to add a cupola on top of it, and then also changing out the existing kind of colonialized faux true divided light windows, which are between the glass, and removing some of the doors to the right side of the facade, and creating kind of the same window glazing all the way across the front, which is better for the interior for merchandising, because it's a store inside. And with the exception of one door that would come out, the rest would be windows. Going over this kind of strange lattice work with some shiplap, and then the idea would be to kind of paint the whole building in a kind of monochromatic scheme. We're going to be using a Benjamin Moore historic color. We haven't arrived on that color yet, but to give you an idea, it's going to be in a gray-green family. It looks very gray under this light. And we probably will work up a few samples on the building of varying lightnesses to get the color so the client can approve it. The existing roof is an architectural grade in kind of this buff color, and we'll be adding some additional lighting on the building, which is different than the lighting that Kate will talk about in the middle, which is the site lighting. There are existing fixtures on the building. There's sconces on either side of the front door, which we will be replacing. There are a couple of lights off the back entry, which we'll be replacing with this kind of historic looking cast iron fixture. And then we have a sign, which is also part of the application. It's the Complete Angler sign. This is their logo. The C is actually a fly, and so we're incorporating that into the shape of the sign. The sign is a bit irregular to incorporate the shape of the fly, but the client seems pretty happy with that. The size of the sign meets the regulations for square footage based on the length of the building. This is the only sign that we'll be putting on the building. There is a street sign there which we'll be abandoning. And with that said, I do have some details here on the construction of the roof, if you guys would like to get into that. And then I think that maybe Kate can talk a little bit about what we're doing with the site, because we're trying to create and enrich the front of the building. So we're actually introducing some enlarged planting beds across the front. We're bringing in some trees for scale of the building facade and soften all the masonry, which is the parking lot and the sidewalk and the brick facade. And Kate can talk a little bit about that.
I have a question about the roof.
Sure.
And quickly, before you, if you wanna
Sure.
stick on the one thing.
Absolutely.
I'm not, would you describe what that roof is? The material of it? I'm not familiar with it, the sample that you put up.
Oh, it's an architectural grade, it's an
Right.
asphalt roof, it's
It's a
what.
regular asphalt roof, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to look particularly, and it's not like slate, it's not like old cedar, what is
Right.
it supposed to look like?
Well,
Weathered wood?
it's the existing roof that's
Oh,
on
it
the
is,
building.
okay, all
And
right.
we weren't planning on changing that.
Yeah.
But we are planning on painting out everything, the brick,
Right.
the trim, the
And it's all
gutters.
gonna be in this dark color.
It's gonna be in one of these
I
tones that we're
hope
gonna
it
play
will be
with.
lighter,
Yeah.
a little bit.
This would be probably the darkest tone it would be, and then we'll lighten it up from there.
Now, the one point on the cupolas, when you look at the cupola here, it looks large when you look at it at this end, and it looks smaller when you have it on the long end.
Sure,
And
sure.
which is the way it is, but you obviously have it, the regular cupola dimensions of 1.25 or whatever it is for inches that they have.
it's-
That's the standard, I think it's 1.25.
I thought it was 15% of the roof area, I believe is the
Well,
size.
this is what I read earlier, it's
I'm pretty sure it's 15% of the roof area, and this is well under
quarter
that.
of the cupola base for every foot of the roof line.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Well, this is what is 1.25 or 1.25 of the base of the cupola is for 1 foot of the unbroken roof line.
Okay,
Well, maybe that, I mean, I can't do math in my head.
so it's 1.25 inches per interrupted,
Well, 1.25 or 1.25, 1.25.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is what, when I was looking at cupola dimensions, and this is what I found, I was just curious what you know about it.
I do not know that.
Okay.
Our zoning
Would you like
review.
this?
I'd love to see that, sure. I don't know if I can,
No, I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a
but-
worthy question, because, see, we put some cupolas have come through town recently, and
Sure.
when they've gone up, the scale has been wrong, and when
Yeah.
it's too late, they've been too thin and too tall, and they haven't,
And they can be too big, I think this looks too big. On this one here, that window.
well, it's hard to look at it at the long gable end. You'd never see the cupola like this, so it's more of
Yeah,
a perspective
I know.
thing. This
Yeah.
is a 93-foot long building, which
Well,
is
there's
pretty
something
big.
about the windows in the cupola that bother me too. Because you think of cupola usually have places for air to go in. They have slats, or they have something else with the window. But you want to fit the rest of the house.
I think the proportions of the cupola need to be examined. For one thing, the roof is, I don't know if you're replicating the pitch, it says 5 and 12, what's the existing pitch? Also, the proportion of the window is very horizontal. Also, I believe having like a fascia or some sort of trim underneath the roof eave, where it engages into the cupola would flush it out a little bit more.
Mhm.
So I think the cupola is a bit of a weak point on this overall design. It can be improved, I mean, I think the introduction of the element is a nice move, but I think there's certain architectural features to the cupola that really need to be dug into a little bit more scrupulously, so.
The
that's-
windows? No. they don't have one.
I think they're a little too horizontal, but I think what kind of caught my eye more than anything is that the roof doesn't have any sort of trim underneath it that engages back into the cupola.
Sure.
it's well said, Dave, I like that.
If I'm on a roll, can I
Sure, go
say
Yeah,
something
keep
else?
going.
Okay. With regard to the sign, I admire the sign, but I think at the same time, it's a little distracting to have the curved portion of the sign kind of as this freestanding element. I think having that graphic and possibly having that as applied to a rectangular piece behind it or something would give it a little bit more of kind of it would fit in a little bit better, in my opinion, to the overall facade. It's just, I think having that graphic, having that curve above above the fly is an interesting element, but I think the sign itself should be rectangular. I'm also a little concerned about the way the lights are depicted and the detail of the roof, how they're kind of just attached to the back and swinging over. I'm a little concerned about how those lights will look. If there's too much light there, and possibly just a very small linear light or something would be a little less distracting. I don't see, is that the shade type light that is shown
Yes.
up on the gooseneck?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's on the
Yeah, it's
section
on,
page,
yeah, it's on G1.
like that.
I guess size-wise, it's, let's see, 40 and a quarter, 22 and a quarter. I don't know if is that accurately shown on that section?
This was all the gooseneck we could get, but it would not stick out 30 inches. I couldn't get any
Yeah,
other spec
yeah,
on that, so
that-
it would be shallow.
Looking at that and then looking at the section, I'm not quite getting it.
Would you prefer a sign underneath this, a strip light underneath the sign that
It could be that
washes up and
uplighting
get
it,
rid
yeah,
of
something a little
those?
bit more subtle, something even like
That's
incorporating
interesting.
like a piece of trim or something underneath it so that you don't see the source.
Yeah, I think you could
that's-
actually run a light along the bottom that wouldn't obstruct the sign and then illuminate it. Instead of having something come over the top, so it kind of goes away.
Yeah, the gooseneck, I mean, we see goosenecks all the time, and I don't know if it's an appropriate application here. I
Right.
think uplighting it with something that's hidden might give it a little bit more presence.
I couldn't understand the positioning of the lights in relationship to the curve, to Mr. Riley's point, because of the sign being curved and straight, and you're showing three lights, and they're mounted to the back of the sign, so one is gonna be higher than the other, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where
Well,
my suggestion of making it a
Right.
rectangular sign
Yeah.
that's still having the graphic curve on it.
I really.
But I think overall, the lights, I think are, maybe should be rethought.
It's a little bit like a museum light, that's.
Or maybe something that's from the bottom that's just
Yeah.
angled up, that only
I
illuminates
like
the
that
sign.
suggestion a
Yeah.
lot better than the goose.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I actually do like, we struggled a little bit with the shape of the sign, because it's so important for the brand that the fly is the sea. But I think looking for a way to maybe apply, or maybe even just come in and cut real tight to the fly itself, and go back to the rectangular sign, I think is a good suggestion.
And even if that was like routed in, like that line, that curved line was like routed into the sign or something, and that was like a contrast.
But you're
I mean, I can
saying
explain
in
this.
total rectangle sign,
Yes.
not an arch and squared off.
Correct. I'm kind of just sketching it out here.
Yeah,
Like
no,
if the
that's not
sign
what I-
itself was rectangular, and this portion was like either,
Dimensional.
cut in or applied or something, so that, I don't know, I think having that shape on the facade
Is wrong.
is, a little inappropriate perhaps to the overall aesthetic of the building.
Well, maybe there's a way to create something that,
Well, the other part of it is.
that's an applied piece, which is the fly.
Could be that it
And then you let the
comes apart a
sign be
little
that rectangular board, and maybe it's
No, no, no,
the
no.
hook and the
No, no.
fly. No?
I think David's right, it's gotta be rectangular across the front. I have this,
Well, that's what he's saying, it's rectangular.
no,
with an
but
applied
he's saying
surface.
he's,
Still
he's
add
raising it
something on-
above.
You're raising it on top.
And
I think that,
kind of
I
is-
think it detracts, so, the word Adirondack came up in a description, and it was used again in your verbal
I
description.
said not necessarily Adam.
No, I know, but the word Adirondack showed up. And I spent a lot of time in the Adirondacks, and so I didn't look at the sign or the cupola and things, but I looked at the front porch roof. And one of the things that disturbs me is the archway that exists behind on the doorway, that's behind the sign. So to David's point, when you have this curved sign and then you have the curved arch, the previous existing arch remaining, it doesn't go well. So I think, to David's point, I think the sign absolutely has to be a rectangle and squared off, because you can't carve that arch in half.
Well, Sean, can I jump in there and say, like, does the arch sign even work under this new proposal? You're adding, another square element with a cupola, possibly. That arch sign, I think a lot of applicants have tried to work with that building arch in the first place, and maybe it no
Hang on,
longer.
I got another idea.
Okay.
So, what I was really, with the part, forget the sign, if you take the sign and erase it.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
for purposes of hypothetical discussion. And if you could eliminate the existing door arch that's in the background on the facade,
Yeah,
okay, if you could eliminate that, then I think we're starting with a really good, foundation to come forward, right? So I thought about this a little bit, and let's go back to Adirondack for a second. If you build an Adirondack Lodge, you will have a porch, and most likely you will have it on all four sides. And I looked at this and I kept looking at this and said, the facade under the roof is too complicated for an Adirondack Lodge. And my suggestion is, where if you look at the cross-section of your east to west view on the top left, no, stay there on that page, top left. Okay, so you see where your pitch of the roof comes into the, underneath the eave of the original roof?
Yep.
My suggestion is you gotta raise that pitch, and you gotta come up either tight under that roof, or you gotta cut into that roof.
That's what I suggested to
And,
Mr. Harris.
and I think,
It's the budget.
because an Adirondack style lodge is gonna have a steep pitch roof for snow, and then it's gonna run out level on the porch, but it's not a level roof. I think your roof on this porch is too level. Even though it's got a water pitch on it, I think that when you go back to the street side, you have to eliminate some of the features of the facade. You have to raise the roof and eliminate some of the white features. And I think that then you cut up into that arch, so you have a little bit of the dome of the arch left, and if you put his square rectangle sign on the front, you almost make that existing arch on the wall disappear. And I honestly think the roof on the porch, on the back side against the facade of the building has to be raised up, as if it were
So it's a
true
kickout porch.
a true Adirondack runoff roof. You know, either you cut into the original roof with a pitch and get rid of the eave here, or the drainage part, you know, the gutters, and come up a little taller into it, or you come up really tight to the bottom of it and eliminate the gutter. So all the water off the original roof runs right onto the porch, and then you have your gutter off. I think the front looks too complicated. I mean, I don't see it in color or rendering, but I look at the lines on this and I'm looking back and I'm like, it doesn't work for a lodge. I mean, functionally it works. I think it can look better by raising the back side of that roof. And I think then you would get rid of the arch. You get cut into more of that arch line because you're raising the roof. And then if you do that, then you can make your sign, like Dave said, with a rectangle. You could almost go up and from the street side, you could almost eliminate the view of that arch.
oh, you eliminate it without having to actually take the money to
Move it,
truly
to move
remove
it.
the arch,
Right.
that.
And I don't think additional I don't think you're exchanging dollar for dollar to raise the pitch on that porch.
I kinda didn't wanna cut into that existing roof, cause I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, I get it. Can you
There's
get,
also a gutter
but
line up there.
can you get right up tight to the bottom of it?
I can definitely get up into that, yeah, and I can also drop the front of the roof to get more of a pitch.
I don't know that dropping the front was the right answer, because I think you have to have the window clearance for the daylight view into the retail space on the inside.
What about creating a fascia board or something, a trim board that runs across that covers that arch inside? Would you be open to that, so you don't see that? And it could be a running piece of trim, so you don't see it as an arch piece? Cause that's all masonry work up there.
Yeah,
So I'd have to dismantle that,
Well,
which I.
I think that's still
I
separate
don't
from what
know
you're
that-
saying.
I don't
It's still
know
not-
that it's so, and see, the problem is the current curved sign and the curved arch
Sure.
don't go together. And on a two-dimension plane, I think the arch would look better centered over the rectangle sign that Dave recommends.
Okay,
And then you have like a semi-moon over the top of the sign, but it's in the background. But if you raise the roof, you're gonna eliminate more of that sign, that archway anyway.
right.
I think that, I just,
Well, I think you're saying two different things.
two
The arch is
different
one
things.
thing
I
and the
think-
roof line is a different thing. It's simplicity, creating more simplicity of the roof line is one thing you're saying, and the second part is the arch itself.
I'm having trouble with the facade, the existing facade,
Yeah,
as it
Right.
combines into the new roof.
Yeah.
I can't see it. I'm looking at it in a two-dimensional plane here, I'm looking at it up here, and I see inches. And to me, every single one of those Adirondack roofs comes in pitched hard, and the porch comes right into the,
What about putting the porch back?
huh?
You said, don't you like the porch?
No, I think the porch is great for this application.
Right, well,
I don't like the roof line, and right above it.
So you want the porch there,
I want the porch here,
okay.
and if I were really truly retail, I would try and figure out how to raise the columns on the front of this porch line a little taller.
Yep.
To get more light on the inside of the retail, but in so doing, you have to raise the backside roof line. And if I'm thinking Adirondack, I want it to go back up into the roof of the Adirondacks. Now, I'm only using the word Adirondack because it's a very descriptive lot.
Good thought.
But I just have a hard time on the two dimensions here with all these horizontal lines from the original roof, the gutter, the facade, and the eave of the original roof, I don't have a ruler, but number of inches of the next piece of facade where it's still above
Right.
what you've drawn in as the height of this pitch of the roof. And if I were really going for it, I would skip the PDM roof and EPDM roof and put the shingles on it, which means you'd have to have a better pitch on that porch
Yeah,
roof.
I'd have to increase that a lot.
I know.
Yeah, you'd have to,
Yeah.
that was gonna be one of my questions, is whether you could see, which it looks like you can, even with this pitch, you can see the EPDM roof, which I think you would need to address with a different material, and you wouldn't wanna see just I don't know.
Can it be a metal, like a standing steam metal?
Well, that would be my whole budget for the porch.
No, so that's part of
Can you?
the
Yeah.
consideration.
You can get it in gray or white or, yeah.
Well, I don't think it has to be shingle, but, cause he's not gonna get, it's not, how wide is it from front to back on the porch? From front sidewalk to the?
It's under 10 feet, it's like 9 foot too, it's a shallow roof, so.
You're not gonna see it.
No, I don't think you're gonna see any of it, and maybe what you need is a 3D sketch.
100%.
Because you got a column that ties into a beam, and then all you have is a roof fascia. It's a pretty simple structure out front, which has an integrated gutter in it. And then 9 feet back is or 8 feet back is your gutter line, it's kind of set back. So I think you'll see it from across the street, but I don't think you'll see any of that from the parking lot.
I'd like to personally, Rebecca Morrison, I'd really like to see a section. I think a section to show where those materials are meeting would be really helpful, because I don't think even seeing it as just a simple elevation is gonna cut it.
Well, there is a section in here, so.
Right,
So
but
Paul,
a new section.
We did talk to you guys ahead of this about getting more detailed renderings of this, because we knew it was gonna be we'd get into these minute details, and I think that would be part of it, to see something that's a lot more
Okay.
detailed here.
Okay.
Just where those two,
Beyond a cut though, too.
Right.
I think a coloring rendering as well.
that was my next
That's what we-
suggestion,
sorry.
especially if you're going for changing the color, I'd like to see a colored rendering of what it's gonna look like.
Okay.
What do you think about the idea, Sean mentioned this too, about bringing the roof line around? I know that to the east side, you can't really do that with the way the building cuts out, but on the left side where you talk about adding a boat rack or something like that, did you guys think about extending the porch around that side?
Well, no, we'll go into the parking lot. Our handicap spots are there,
Okay.
and the building
have a lot
also
of parking.
jogs. So I don't know how, I don't have a lot of, to wrap this, I'd be into handicap parking.
You have a lot of site parking there, I'm counting like 20 spaces,
No, we have 36.
that's a lot of space, you think you're gonna have 30 people there?
Well, we need that, that's our count.
Alright.
For the building.
For planning, for zoning regulations, you need it?
That's our count,
from
yeah.
the
We're actually
sides.
taking away spots, because we're creating a casting area,
I saw that.
because 90% of the rods they sell all have to be tested.
Okay.
So we have and Kate can talk to that, but where we've removed some.
That's a
So-
good segue, if
Okay,
I
yeah,
may.
before you jump into that though, so I think, to summarize some of your points there, I think we need to see some reworking and detailed renderings.
Okay.
I think I'm in support of what Sean said, I think it sounds like the board in general is agreeing that there's a relation between the porch and the building, the proposal, that's something's not quite meeting, we'd like to see a different relationship there. Maybe tightening that, simplifying it, showing us in a more detailed rendering, revisiting of the cupola, right?
Yeah.
Maybe an option or two of the sign. The curb in general, anyone speaks to that, I'm definitely opposed to that curb, I don't know how to deal with that in any sort of budgetary way, but I think that definitely, I don't know. it works with the windows, but, so I wanna get to you, I just wanna make sure we've hit all the facade changes. I mean, Rebecca,
I just
Anya,
really wanna see the coloring too, I mean, having dealt with storefronts that are painted brick, it's tricky, so I'd like
Yeah.
to see it rendering it.
Could they consider studying as well a small gable that works with the large gable right over the central entrance? Right now, there's nothing to relieve the length except for that curve on the sign.
right,
But if the center roof was coming out underneath the big roof, you just came out for the 10 feet and have that as your backdrop to your sign, that
Like
could
that.
maybe help you.
Sorry, Kate.
I don't wanna sketch, but, so that's a question I have for you in general. This is my first meeting, so I'm really learning my role here.
no, but explain that, you're talking about bring,
What is the latitude
We
of,
wanna
in
hear
my
your
role,
suggestions.
to sketch or draw things as a suggestion during a meeting? Is that considered?
no, yeah, we can do that all the time,
Is that-
I mean, David
okay.
was just doing that, yeah, if you,
Because
It's
I'm
fun.
totally along with what Sean was saying in terms of the simplicity of the line. I mean, Adirondack or a fishing lodge could be a lot simpler. There's a lot of trim detail, which I think is gonna obscure a little bit what you're trying to do. And it could be much simpler lines, which may end up costing you less money because it would be less of a trim package. But then concentrating on some of the silhouette. And so the only thing I would suggest, you want me to go over there?
For the record, did I mention Adirondack style?
Somebody did, I read it.
It was not me, so. And
I read it somewhere.
I also know the style very well, we've
Yeah.
done a lot of work out west with that. So, and this was not where I was going
We
with this
can
building.
step away from Adirondack.
Okay, good.
Sure, because otherwise you start creating, flared tone and all sorts of different things.
Okay.
that you know, but-
I don't think this is Adirondack style, I was just using it as a
Sure.
reference point. The other thing that we brought up here, I just noticed that you got to still have the gutter for the original roof on the new design.
Mhm.
If you remove that gutter and leave the gutter on the front of the porch and raise the back of the porch roof up into the other roof and have the water run straight off the main roof onto the porch roof into the gutter, then you eliminate one more line that's confusing to me.
Well, okay.
I mean, you're also.
It'll probably need to be a step, I can't just, I don't think we wanna run this roofing down onto the shallow, because number one, the pitch isn't steep enough, so. There's gonna have to be a break, there's gonna have to be a break on how this roof comes down. And where the drip happens, where the next roof starts. Because I can't blend this asphalt roof with a shallow pitched EPDM or another type of synthetic roofing, because I can't flash it. So you generally need, not to mention snow and ice damming and water sitting against that in the northeast, it's a shallow roof, so it's kind of nice to keep them separate, because there's enough room up underneath this eave here. 6 inches gives me enough room to be able to get flashing up underneath that, so when water sits here and freezes and thaws and it puddles up there, it doesn't leak back into the building, just from a practical construction standpoint, so.
Yeah, I also think raising that roof to try to merge with the existing roof would be awkward on the gable end, because then you'd have your porch roof kind of intersecting the two fascias at the bottom
Yeah,
part of that gable end.
I think I'd almost rather see if I can shallow down the beam to get a little better pitch on it. Maybe remove the gutter section up here, which I guess I'm hearing nobody likes this extra line, but then the water could run off onto the porch roof and then into that integrated gutter system. So I can at least get rid of that. And that gutter, by the way, runs the entire length of the building. So,
that would help.
so I could basically get rid of this entire gutter piece up here.
Well, can you do like this section is showing the gutter on the outside of the roof. Can you do more of a hidden gutter at the end of?
Yeah, my gutter is an integrated gutter. It looks like a fascia, but it's actually a gutter behind it. So there's no gutter. You don't see a gutter going around the new roof. There's a leader that comes out the bottom of it that runs down the face of the post.
Right.
So it's kind of like a Yankee gutter, which is an integrated gutter.
But it's outside of potentially where it could be. So it's outside that line of columns and your beams, could it be on the inside, and therefore it would potentially eliminate a bit of the height of that 1 foot high fascia that you have for your gutter? I don't know, easier to sketch on here, but.
Right, well, I could also take that gutter fascia down. I mean, the gutter is the fascia, you don't know that it's there. So I think that we could take the fascia down a little bit, we could take the beam down a little bit, I can still retain a decent pitch. And then maybe, you know, as Mr. Hammond's suggesting, we go back and look at adding a gable over it, or maybe even, I think a shed might actually be more appropriate coming out off the face of the building, but I can only get it as high as the drip that's there now. So maybe we get a shed section that comes out, but it's got to land outside of these two columns, so it actually looks appropriate. So.
Yeah, I like that.
Might help you eliminate the arch.
Oh, I'd lose the arch almost altogether. So then that might give you a little bit of roof in the middle. And then the two side sections are a little flat, so maybe you get to see a little roofing material kind of run up into this thing.
I like that.
And then, again, like you had suggested, remove the gutter to let that run on. So I think that there's a little opportunity to get up into that. I don't know if I can lose all of that arch, but what I might be able to do is when I get up there is to add a piece of trim board, you know, with a drip cap on it at the back wherever this roof comes up and hits the building. I could have a trim with a little drip on it where you get your bricks that run up, but then that hides the top. That little extra trim board could maybe help hide the top of that curve.
I like where you're brainstorming. This is good. This is a good session.
Oh, great.
This is fun stuff.
I just gotta get you guys to come back to my office.
Okay, I know. We need your tools.
It would also be important to get a sample of that, whatever the ever you're
Sure.
Because that may be seen now.
Paul, is there any way we can see something at the base of the columns? The base of the column, it looks like they're just hitting the ground right now. I mean, I know you're not really, you know, construction document right now, but if you need to have a little something both for impact and maybe, you know, I don't know what material you want to do at the base of the column. Right now, they're just dying into the ground.
Right, into the landscape. So
you may want to raise it with something, or if you have a little, whatever, I'm not going to suggest a material, but
sure,
something that just creates a transition from the ground where it gets splashed by rain all the time and then creates the, you know, the weathering of these columns, and then give it about 8 inch to a foot, or, you know, depending on how much you want to bring it. That's part of the larger look too. You could flavor that.
well, maybe one of the things is we could wrap it with the AZAC at the bottom and put a stucco finish on it.
Yep.
And then move the base up onto the column, which would then translate all the way across the whole facade. So I could get a base cap at that height coming all the way through, and then whatever this is sitting on would look more like a masonry pedestal or something, or plinth.
Okay. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I like that idea. Because I was gonna ask, what's at the cap of the column? Because it looked like in the cut.
Simple.
What is it?
They look simple.
It's dark.
It's a little trim.
It's actually a thick slab. It actually looks like a slab of wood. It comes out of some camps we did in Maine. Where
Oh,
it's a solid cap that the post actually sits under, because all the stuff up there was all locally lumbered. So they basically brought a post up, and the cap was actually sandwiched between the beam and the post. It's just a really nice detail.
It's architectural detail.
Yeah, it's a detail we saw a long time ago, and I love it. I think it looks like a big, thick piece of wood.
And is it wood, or is it gonna be?
Oh, it's wood, but it's a 2-inch thick piece of wood that's just wrapped around the top of the post, kind of emulating that slab piece. So we looked at, 4x6 timber, 45 degrees. There's just too many of them on it. Got really busy, and it was getting more toward that more Adirondack thing, and I want to stay away. I want to stay away from that.
You said it this time. Let the record show.
I did. So we want to stay away from that, because it's a very distinctive style of architecture, and it becomes whimsical and all sorts of things, and I want to stay away from that. So we're looking for more of more of a simplified, anywhere up and down the eastern seaboard.
I think your color rendering is gonna do a lot.
Yeah.
Communicate
Yeah,
all
sure
these
will.
materials and colors. What about the trim around the windows? Are you gonna stay with the same color or just highlight them with a little?
I wanna paint it all out the
Yeah.
same color. I don't wanna end up with all these square white, all this like trim and
All right.
pinstriping. I think if we can settle the building down, because it's just not that beautiful, and we create a little interest with it, and make it all one tone, then the sign pops out and Kate's landscaping pops out, I think would be a lot nicer than all these white squares, and I think it just wants to go, I don't think it wants to be
The
subtle.
clapboard's gonna stay though, right?
Clapboard stays, everything just gets painted out the same thing.
Okay, this is great. That was a good session. Okay, do you wanna go to are you nervous, Kate? The fun's gonna begin.
Simple.
All right,
Can I get my
how
number
warm
on the
down?
door?
Oh, yeah, about sign, one other thing on signage.
Oh, sure.
You've got it.
Number on the front somewhere.
Okay.
You can integrate it with the sign, or you gotta put it on the front door.
Well, one of the places where I thought it could go, because this is kind of, maybe the number goes there.
Maybe, or
Because it's kind of an asymmetrical
On the front
thing.
door.
On the front door.
Front
On the
door.
front door.
Your
Or on the
record
front door?
sign.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Record sign.
recessed into shape though.
Okay. Which door?
You pick. You
Okay.
got a left or a right.
All right. Well, I'm left-handed, so I'll put that. So it'll go there. Okay.
How wide is that new door? But it's taking the place of a double door, right?
This right here is
Yeah.
48 inches. It's supposed to look like it's a window, but it opens.
You have to go
Is that
stick the
needed for
kayak in
egress?
it.
No, there could be chairs out here, there could be merchandise out here, there could be so I think the idea is to come out of the showroom onto that.
How wide is the porch then?
Almost 10 feet.
The porch is about 9'2" deep.
One little chair and you walk by it.
No, that's plenty deep. You could put Adirondack chairs out. Or we could put a couple of rockers out there. I mean, that 9 feet's big enough for chairs to move around. I think they might set up, depending upon what's going on, a kayak out there, the special of the week or something like that. Or maybe it's just some chairs.
Or a swinging chair.
It could be a swinging chair.
I'll go ahead and sit over there.
I think you should, benchmark this or decide that you're gonna call this new style of yours, coastal New England angler style.
There you go.
I was trying to figure out how to bring it along.
Good branding there.
Good job, Liz.
Which is the spelling of complete from the
Yeah.
1600s. That's why it's spelled that way.
Yeah, I was
It's
wondering, I
actually from the
guess.
1600s.
Very cool, interesting. Okay,
Okay.
Mine's big.
So, Kate,
All right,
they're all yours.
Pointed in that direction.
all right, hopefully this will be a little bit easier and straightforward. I think that essentially we're just trying to re-green some of the site, infilling additional street trees, shade trees along Post Road, additional mid-sized trees at the entry. As you see, cutting back several parking spaces in this area, extending additional green space here for the casting area. We have infilled some of the gaps along Birch Road to provide some additional separation for the area where the kayaks are going. And an additional screening on this area, which helps some separation between these two adjacent parking lots. The site lighting, we're trying to keep it very simple. There's some existing bollards that are around the parking lot. They will be replaced. There's one kind of strange, I'll call it a pole light, but it's actually a pole light with the landscape fixture at the top. So that's coming out, an additional bollard there. Bollards at the front, walkway, and then very simple direct dark sky wall packs that are going to replace the existing flood lights so that we get light down on the ground, not out towards the neighbors or the adjacent owners. And then we're freshening up the entrance with a mix of perennial grasses and some shrubs, and evergreen shrubs. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Leslie McCauley, ARB. I think it looks great. I just had a couple of questions if I could. You mentioned, you illustrated 2 trees in front of the store. You call them AC, but it's not in the plant list.
Okay. Okay, in the plant list, it's AB.
Oh,
So they're, it's an
Emily
Emily here. Yeah.
okay. And I'm wondering if we could get rid of, so, one other question. Is that sitting in grass, those Amelanchiers?
Sitting in,
In
not in
grass?
lawn grass, it's a mixture of, switchgrass and potentilla. That's,
But it looks like there's a curb that comes around the building. And is, where,
which side of the building?
right where the Amelanchiers are?
These?
Yeah, is that a grassed area? Like where the bollards are and,
No, this is an existing, concrete, porch
Sidewalk.
and sidewalk.
Sidewalk in front, and then the
okay,
beds
so
are
they're
back.
planting beds, okay.
Yeah.
And then it says that there's a planter in the front?
Well, there's a planter that's kind of where the Amelanchiers are. In this rendering, it kind of gets lost under the trees, but, there is
Let me show it on my drawing.
well, there is it's not a planter, I would say, it's a planted area. So right now, there is a planter,
Right.
and that's going away, and it's gonna be turned into a planted area. So it's gonna be cut out of the concrete, and soil will be replaced there.
Okay, and then you have 2 uplights for trees. Is that 2 uplights per Amelanchier?
No, just one. I think it's just, we were just gonna add one. I think we're just provide a little, accents to those, those
Okay.
trees. I think we have plenty of actual light in that vicinity.
Okay, and then I think we were hoping to have more plantings around the circumference of the site. So over where you have the Juniper virginiana on the right-hand side,
Yep.
is it possible to have either, you've used juniper or viburnum on the left, is it possible to add more viburnum on the right?
We could, yeah.
Just to kind of, and then I was hoping to maybe please have larger trees of your oak and linden. Right now they're 2 to 2.5 caliber. We have like 4.
Oh, okay.
And then can we have more trees? Because right now this whole site has, you've put in 2 trees.
Right, well, there are existing trees. These kind of flat green are the existing trees. So there are over a dozen trees around the perimeter. The new trees really just infill where there's blank. So there's several trees here at the corner. There's a large pine tree, and several groupings of plants and larger trees here. There are shade trees all along this Birch Road.
Okay, but not on the right-hand side of the property.
That is correct. There's
Okay.
there's only one, that's correct.
So maybe we could have some more. And street trees, two additional street trees?
They could be smaller in size to create, lower your budget and grow over time. They got compromise in it, but.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, I
You
mean,
wanna see
you know,
the building too,
these,
right?
right, I mean, these are existing trees, and I'm sorry I didn't bring a photograph. I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I agree with Leslie what you're saying, I like your suggestion. I'm curious how, 2 things, I'd like some more detailing on how the kayak area is created and what that looks like, and I'm also curious how the testing area meets the facade. What is the border of that new greenery space put in?
The testing area.
The fishing rod area in the back, the green space?
So, this is it, so right now, the parking lot comes to here, to the back of the building. This is the existing line of the asphalt. And from here to here, is an existing lawn area, so that's not gonna be changed.
Yep.
So this grass comes to this planter area. We haven't actually decided how this will be defined, but that gravel area will need an edge to it. Maybe a metal edge would be the simplest. And it abuts an existing concrete sidewalk that's here.
You know, the line, you know, the southern line of that grass, I'm wondering how that's edged along the parking there? Will it be a curb, will it be a
Yeah.
parking
Says-
curb?
says asphalt
That would be a
Yeah,
curb,
it'll be a curb, okay, that will run along, then does the curb stop or does the curb meet the building?
No, it comes all the way up and it runs along the side of the handicap spot, and then it ends into a curb which establishes the planting bed on both sides. So there is a curb that runs around that.
Okay. And then the kayak space, like, what's the construction of that? Or some sort of metal,
It's a standard
Tier.
metal, yeah, it's a standard metal rack, or it might just be built out of wood. It's to hold 2 or 3 kayaks. So if somebody, has a demo in the back, and it kind of lives on this kind of gravel pad, so you can maintain the lawn around it. You don't have to move the rack every time you need to cut the grass, or the grass dies, so.
I'd like to see the detailing on that, the proposal, before we approve that.
Okay,
Do you have them protected at night from theft?
they'd be locked,
Okay.
or they bring them in, but I have a feeling there's a way to lock them.
I'm not trying to be picky, but in the plan, the handicap space that's on the northern side. the one
Yeah,
that's
it got cut into
grass,
it.
Looks a little tight.
Yeah, something
And-
happened with Len's
Right.
drawing.
Is there a way to have a little more area for the person to get out of the car on that side? Because that's actually the driver's side, so you have people who are handicapped and driving.
Yeah,
And right now, I actually do mind a little bit the fact that it's grass instead of being a hard surface.
yeah, well, right now, the way that it was laid out, we were removing a spot, so I would say, yeah, I think we can create an area, bring this line through
Yeah.
and create that 5-foot
I
space to
think the
get out
grass
of the
will
car.
create more problem than if you have somebody who's trying to get out.
Yeah, I think that's also a mistake from Len. I think he drove it into a parking spot, so,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
we can fix that.
Sure, good.
That's on your list.
Anything else, guys? And Leslie, you talked about the tree, the parking tree, parking lot, street trees, those parking lot trees, are those up there on the list, what they're proposing is?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you've seen that, okay. Okay. All right,
It's an exciting project.
I think, yeah, it is exciting, but what you guys are doing is fantastic. I think despite the conversation, all the changes, I think the takeaway is we're very impressed what you guys are doing, we're really, really excited about the proposal here. We wanna see you guys at back in, but I think we're going in a great direction. Next time, come bring samples, bring color renderings, Kate, maybe as well for you as well, a color rendering and, some more detailing to your architectural plan. What else? We talked samples, Dave mentioned bringing those, right? Yeah. Any questions for us?
No, I've summarized, Mr. Hammond and I can recap and make sure that we've got all the things that you guys are looking for, and, is this every 2 weeks? Is it monthly? Monthly.
But we should meet in between. I think what would work well is, I'll see how that works in general, but kind of have an in between meeting with the people who are gonna apply for the next.
That'd be great.
And maybe have a brain session, like kind of
Sure.
brainstorming session, and this way you show me where you are, we see how that goes. Maybe there's an informal review, and then this way you're completely ready for the next.
So what's the date of the next hearing?
May 17 is the next one.
I think that's right before planning and zoning.
And the applications for that are due about 2 weeks prior to that,
We tried to do that, yeah.
so around the 3rd of May.
The applications for P and Z?
For
Yeah.
us,
For here.
Do this.
Oh, do I need to reapply, or am I just coming back?
coming back with getting the materials in 2 weeks ahead
Oh,
of time.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
not a reply, but getting the,
Yeah, and that was I'm sorry, you said that was May 17th?
May
That's the
17th is the
meeting.
meeting, and May 3rd is the deadline, or the approximate deadline, 3rd or 4th for sure.
but it sounds like, so the board will not review your materials in the meantime. We don't do that in the meantime, but you can work with Hervé he can work to give you feedback, if there's anything important that he needs to send to the board, we sometimes will look at stuff in between.
Okay, so basically, May 3rd is the deadline, or
Yeah.
you need to,
But I'll work with you to make sure he's got his marching orders and you better.
okay, great,
Okay,
okay.
thank you guys so
Thank you
much,
all.
great
Great.
job.
Give it, thanks.
Okay, we have ARB number 18, 2022 for Better Healthy Massage up next, but
Uh-huh.
did they not show, do we know if
Well,
they?
we told them they needed to be here, but there's, so I can maybe do a recap of what's going on, because
Sure.
there's some issue with it, you know, like, and unless there's an absolute.
No, do it
necessity
now,
for it to be
so,
here.
yeah, so we can tell, because we'll need to see them, but,
Right,
we
so
give
the,
feedback.
the sign, was this, it said massage and the phone number.
right.
They didn't apply at all. So they came back and their business name is Better Healthy Massage. So it's very imaginative. So that actually is the business name.
They make it up that
That's
way.
just, that's right. It would be the same dimensions, so dimensionally, it's fine.
Dimensions are fine, okay.
The proportion, all that is okay, the post is the same. They're having a hard time language-wise to fill out the application and follow the process.
Oh,
So
okay.
been trying to help them and literally send them links to do this and that. So
Okay.
this part may be possible to approve
Yeah, what's the language
or
barrier?
at least review and have a favorable thing. The issue that's going on right now, I think I sent you all an email
That's in front of you.
just before I went this afternoon. Jeremy and I looked at it. They blocked out the windows with things, posters and images and whatnot. That's not compliant with the code at all. So it's either a see-through or a shade, but not, because it's not a storefront.
Yeah,
It's a service. I was just gonna keep it that. Now, the police was there yesterday, so I understand that there's some question about what exactly the massage includes.
What's a healthy massage?
What is the extent of the massage? So, just so that you put that on your radar.
alright, so
So
maybe
those,
these guys won't be here.
we will have to tell them that they have to remove whatever is hiding the view, which may not be the right thing to do, I don't know, but.
Between the
Um,
new
Oh,
feature
we're just here for the
Shit,
signage.
we're just here for the signage, right? So,
Okay.
so for the signage part, if you are okay with this sign, they can probably get that produced and be pretty close to this.
It's
Instead
a
of-
pretty lackluster sign though.
Very boring sign.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they
Oh,
did
But,
better
I
than
mean,
that.
I'm only presenting now, being
Right,
very
right,
neutral.
right, Okay,
They gotta
Yeah, they
get it,
gotta put the number on it,
well, I know, well, the number won't
address.
fit
not
with
the
the new
telephone number,
sign.
the address
The
number.
address,
Well,
They had it on the other one, it looked really nice in that font.
No, but,
the 682 is
Mhm.
missing.
well, no, but you could put on the door maybe, couldn't
Couple
you, Sean?
suggestions. One,
I don't
You
know,
don't
I
want
didn't-
682,
Yeah.
better healthy massage.
Thank you.
So so the font is not very inspiring, and then
No.
the lady wanted to emphasize the word massage, so I said to her, I said, well, massage could be a little bit bigger, so I guess that's what happened.
She's gotta
So
get a different
the
designer.
translation did not quite,
She's got a better
She
sign
should use the, she
designer.
should use the font she has on her illegal sign.
right.
Use the number from her illegal sign, and use the outline from her illegal sign.
So
Okay.
Sarah,
And just
interesting,
change the
yeah.
name.
Just change the name.
but change the name.
But maybe you
I
can
can
put
suggest that.
massage in the middle and have better and healthy,
No,
like
that's
top
have
and bottom.
a little tiny better and better, the big massage.
Better massage, healthy,
Yeah, right.
better
Do the
healthy
other
massage.
one, better massage.
The old,
I don't know.
compare
Healthy
later.
Okay,
massage.
stop, time out.
No,
Massage better, massage healthy.
Yeah.
So
There-
how's the
this
name of
looks
the
more
company?
interesting.
Sorry, yes,
This looks more
The name
interesting
of the
than
company,
that.
because that is the name of the company, Better Healthy Massage. But with this font,
yeah,
the
Yeah,
sign,
And that number.
the outline, so you work at it a little bit, because this is. I think
And the
they
number.
did this very fast because they wanted to make sure to be on tonight, so
Well,
we can suggest something, but in reality, it doesn't really produce any
This-
result, because they
the
have
old
to
one
get
looks
back to
better.
it.
well,
Now,
they-
if
have our
they
suggested
use-
changes and they still need to come see us. They
So
need
you
to come
wanna see
present.
them-
they
You wanna
need to
see
come
them in
present to
May,
us.
right? You don't wanna approve administrative.
Nope. We gotta see these people.
Right,
I gotta
exactly.
meet these guys, I gotta figure out what's going on here. This is definitely
May
coming.
17. Yeah, I did tell them at least 3 times. I know Greer was there when I told him,
Okay.
so I just, I said you have to be whatever,
Okay, fantastic, thank you for showing that.
The
So you,
disease
but you can give them some,
massaging.
these suggested changes in the meantime, they'll help facilitate a quicker review. Come May, okay.
Sign with address.
We have to
Okay.
do the minutes now.
Oh, yes, the minutes we have already, right?
Okay,
You
so
signed
that's
them
number
and-
A or B, okay. Yeah, what is next? Sorry, lost my
I
agenda.
think that's it.
Minutes?
Yep, approval minutes. Is everyone approved for February and March? Is everyone read and approved? Say yes?
Well, I wrote February, so they're approved.
Okay. Any changes to anything? No. Nope, okay, you got approval across the board. And other business, I mean, this is a beautiful intro. This is our new P and Z staff members, you guys can see. Okay, you've obviously shown your worth in the first, in the hour that we've had you here.
Yeah.
But can you just give, I mean, I don't want, I know it's getting late, guys, but a brief overview of your fantastic experience that you bring to us.
So, I spent about close to 30 years as a registered architect. I was a lead designer for a lot of different firms, some in the area. I worked for Dinyar Wadia in 1987, kind of went around, Wadia Associate, Hilton Brennerhorn in Greenwich, Peter Perdue in Westport. And then my career led towards more master planning. I started working with the Geddes Partnership, and with the Geddes Partnership I did the Lapham Community Center in New Canaan on Waveney Park. I was the project architect for that from the very start, the zoning permit, all the way until it was completely finished in the ribbon cutting, which was a great experience. And it's highly historic, you know it's from a noted architect, Mr. Tubby, William Tubby, who did also Waveney and a bunch of other places. That led to a career in traditional architecture, if you want, at Perkins Eastman. That was my specialty, was all the historic looking assisted living, senior independent living. I was the lead designer for the senior living practice at Perkins Eastman. And then master plan in China as well, because there was a demand, very large demand about, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago or so. But I wanted to finish my career as a public servant. I didn't want to continue working for developers, but I've always loved, obviously high-end design and, historic details. So when a job opened up in Maryland to be a combination of assistant city planner and in charge of the Historic Preservation Commission, I was hired. I then helped develop the Historic Preservation Design Guideline that I gave to Liz to look at, which was an interesting effort because it involved a combination of understanding historic preservation and detailing, as well as making sure the elected official voted yes for it. It didn't happen for almost 20 years. 1999 was the last time they approved historic preservation guideline, and the guidelines were about 15 pages thick. These guidelines are a lot better. But it took a lot of hard work and collaboration with the Historic Preservation Commission. We had a lot of work sessions, and we merged a lot of different towns, vision, Beaufort in North Carolina, other towns that we just inspired the new guidelines on. And I really enjoyed that. Then the position of Director of Planning and Zoning for Dorchester County opened up. And the city planner, who was my boss, changed her mind on retiring, and she decided not to retire, and I was supposed to become her, or have to take her job.
Oh dear.
So when that opened up, I applied and got the job as a director, and I was director for 2 years there. But my wife and I decided we really liked Connecticut better than Maryland. Her family is all around here, and I won't say I grew up here, but since 1997 I've been a Connecticut person. My kids went to Stanford High School, so Connecticut is where we belong, right? So when this job opened up, I applied and I got the job. Now, you've seen some of my high-end design residential. I'll be happy to do diagram and sketches. I was in charge of the studio, so that meant I have some summer interns, junior staff. When I went to China, I was sent to China for a month, which was a very interesting, a long time. We did a competition in Shanghai and Beijing, and I had 10 staff, only one spoke English. And we communicated via drawings for an entire month, which was fantastic. And they learned to say, call me by, and they would call me to their desk and say, Mr. Teacher, can you come here? Mr. Teacher.
Cool.
So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it, and it was a beautiful project, one of those that's in that little booklet thing. So that's kind of, if you want to know more, I can tell you more.
Very impressive, very, very impressive.
Well, I sent your resume and some of your sketches around so people kind of see the work that you guys, so everyone can see if you guys got the email.
And if you guys live near the water, you may actually see me with a orange buoy, because I'm a marathon swimmer and I swim all over the Long Island Sound.
Oh, really?
I've done the swim across the Sound for St. Vincent 4 times, 1 time solo and every time else in relay. And I've done a lot of fundraising and cancer, leukemia, ALS.
Do you want a kayak? I've got a kayak for you.
Yeah, I love
Or
having
a dock,
kayakers
if you want a
volunteer.
dock to swim off
That's
of.
right. My last swim was 11 miles with 2 kayakers. I've done a lot of, 15 milers and stuff, so I really, you may see my buoy. It's not a joke.
Well, hearing this, I also threw on the agenda today about revisitation of our POCD, the Darien Plan of Conservation and Development. It was last developed in 2016. Everybody brings up a beautiful side that is one of my heartthrobs, which is the preservation of our area and just kind of our historical resources. And I think during this time of all this development, we're seeing a lot of projects. I just wanted to make sure that we all have visited or are familiar with the Plan of Conservation and Development. I think you guys have all seen it. But I took some notes going, a couple of these projects have come through and been controversial, like the Parklands Drive one's controversial. That's being appealed right now. Another one's gonna come back to us, is 7 Sedgwick. That was a building that proposed at the entrance of Goodwives Shopping Center where the old Bank of America is there. It came to us and it was helpless, so we just rejected it. But it's on the border of our historic district. I think we're gonna start seeing even more stuff in the historic district as developers have an eye on Darien. So I just wanted to just put that on this conversation out there if anyone had any comments, but also let you guys know.
You sent the whole thing around?
There's a link to it. I mean, the document's 150 pages or
Yeah, I was
something.
gonna
It's ridiculous.
say, so we all have a
But
link,
so,
okay.
yeah, there's a link to you guys, but the one thing that I like, for me, that my takeaway whenever I come to these meetings, I think there's a development one of the 5 sections of it, one of them is development strategies. And one of the mandates of that is to encourage appropriate development and maintain and ensure character.
Yeah.
And when they set up the ARB, that was the mission of the ARB. And I think you guys all let Sean and me, you helped probably write this mission. And part of that too is they call that we're supposed to be maintaining a small town coastal New England charm. And I kind of want to remember that as we see, and federal came through here. I don't know if that really hits small town New England charm. I don't know what that is, but that's top of mind, and also about creating a strong sense of place and pedestrian friendliness. So those are my big takeaways. I don't know if you guys have comments, we don't have to talk about it, but if someone else wants to say, but again, my goal is just putting this back in the forefront of our minds as we're seeing a lot of commercial development here and just kind of getting back to our roots and what our goal is for our board.
Maybe we should write the mission statement on the whiteboard
Yes.
when they all come in. What was it again? Small town coastal New England?
Yes.
Right. I like that.
I mean, I actually sat down and I read it, and it was interesting. Yeah, it's a lot of pictures, so it did not take very long. And then I was like, oh, so this is why Vivaldi's Deli is always flooding. They put it on top of a pond in 1935, so it turns out it's not just, other issues. But I did think, the town knows, clearly the town knows very well what it wants to be. But I think we're forgetting some of the places, I love some of these plans that are calling for perhaps more walkways, more pedestrian areas obviously I live in Northern Heights, so I watch that Federal Realty behemoth several times a day. But it was the plans, the mission, the goals for that area seems very welcoming to pedestrians, and obviously it is not right now, and I don't think it's going to be with only the Federal Realty, and I don't know how much the town has to step in a little bit, because some of these things it's unclear who owns what property wise, because some of it's right on the some of it's parking lot for the train stations, but I think part of having that charm, on all of these images, it's trees, right? Every single thing, they draw it out and they're trees, and then
On the walkways.
Mm-hmm. And that does add to not little tiny 2-year-old trees, larger trees add to that feeling of community and being small town charm, as opposed to just concrete everywhere. And it certainly doesn't work when you put birch trees, which I know I've said this once and I'm just gonna keep harping on it. The birch trees, are not those green, lush trees that you see when you're walking on pavements. And very disappointed that, like, that's what they chose to put there, because it's just creating people.
Yeah.
So,
We
like I
have
said
such
before,
tree plans that we've done for town on a variety of bases. And then we have the beautification commission too, and I'm wondering what they're doing these days. They do their conservation and beautification. Are they still
I think
around?
they folded. I mean, Leslie, you were on that.
I was on it a while ago.
I was gonna say, yeah.
For the tree commission, so like.
And the tree commission is still around too, so
I
we've
think
got
it's
it.
not. Look, from,
It's not,
no, from,
okay.
that surprises
were
me,
shut
that's sad,
down.
that stinks.
Oh, dear.
I
From,
think there were only 3 of us.
from,
Okay.
I joined. I wrapped myself around some trees. From 2016 till now, I think the biggest difference is GIS systems, and hiring somebody or getting somebody who is familiar with GIS systems could be really great for this town. I think that's like a worthwhile thought project to see whether or not we want to talk about lighting or trees or heights of things. I mean, GIS is kind of where it is now, and I think that would be a wonderful
Oh, that's
place to like put some
interesting idea.
effort into
Urban
things.
planner.
So, I have one comment on the PFCD and what's happening in town, having only been here a little bit. I find a lot of contrast between the two big projects in Darien. And I'm not sure how that happened, but when I look at Federal, the project you're talking about, North Heights, which is still the old-fashioned large amount of parkings in front of a strip mall,
Yeah.
versus what's
old-fashioned.
happening with Corbin, which has really developed little plazas and little
Yes.
inner spaces.
Well, that's a local one.
It's, how did that
What's
happen in terms of
fascinating,
decision-making?
it's the same architect.
I
It's
know.
Vinefield for both, which is like so crazy to me that if you're, you know, you would think that there would be, I don't know, a little bit of like, what are you doing over there? I get that it's gonna be competitive, but,
I personally, I find that the Corbin development is much more along the line of what you're talking about.
Right.
With
Yeah.
small spaces,
That's a
pedestrian
local
friendly,
developer.
little nooks and things, and all the cars are brought underneath. When the other one, it's all the cars on flat and a couple of garages.
You can't-
but then
It's called
You can't-
money.
You can't put them underground.
I know,
Too
but
much.
then,
Because
then
it's
what,
expensive.
why is there, you know, why is the development as big as it is? I mean,
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of other questions, but it's just, it was very interesting to read through this, and then the streetscape is the other thing that this plan is talking about all the time. And to create the sense of identity
yeah,
for the town is what are the motifs and the details.
yes.
And it was always interesting that my master's in science of architecture and building design, the subconscious of people, you draw a bracket and you're in the Adirondack style. You draw an Ionic column and you're Greek, you know, you just start, even if it's just an outline, just a sketch, you start tapping into people's subconscious reading of a historic detail.
Right.
And that's part of what you guys are doing, and you're doing, I think you're doing a fantastic job, like trying to create some cohesion, but it's tough when I see the signs.
I took the easy roll, I just tell them to put numbers on it.
Also, let's
With
not
good
forget that
with good
besides
fo-
Federal, we're gonna have the Palmers. And
Well, that's-
If and
again,
when
there's
they
that,
ever get
that
going.
question of
That's-
cohesion. Well, something's gotta happen there.
What
It's
is,
such a
like-
nice-
Palmer's.
They're at planning and zoning, they just,
They're the similar type.
they're through planning and
It's
zoning,
federal.
but they're bringing in their Goddard school now is the question of approving that and how that will come to the regulations.
Liz, you saw my 2 comments, which is, my background is in retail, traditional retail design, but I know a lot about Nantucket and the architectural and sitting in the architectural review for that town. And my thing is that, 2 things, is that I have a really hard time with houses like the one on Leroy that was just destroyed because someone wants to take it over and put 2 lots there, and you know that those buildings are gonna be horribly,
Out of place.
out of place.
Can I-
Or the one on my street on Prospect, that is completely out of place, and I really feel like 2 things need to happen. Number 1, there needs to be feasibly some sort of incentive, whether it be tax-wise or another way, to get these historical structures to stay in
Well,
town.
a village district is what we were talking about.
But even, I mean, I don't think we were, that would fall within that district, so there has to be something.
Well, I don't
Or
know, we
you're
haven't
way up on
decided that
Hollow
yet.
Tree, Hollow Tree, but there has to be something to
No, a
help
village district, not the
incentivize-
historic district, we're not talking about
incentivize to
that.
keep these houses. But second of all, I think in Nantucket, which is really amazing, and I'm not saying you can go there, but you know, if you buy a house in Nantucket, a percentage of the sale, which is only about 1 to 2%, I think it's 2, now goes to buying land within the town to make things like these pocket parks. And I know that not everyone can afford to add 2% to your sale, to the sale of a house, but it would be very amazing if somehow, even if it was up, like if you're buying at an X amount of range, that there was some sort of a land bank type of,
It's a good idea.
fee added to your property so that we could buy properties and make these pocket parks to make the town not just completely.
Has the town hired a consultant to do like a historic resource survey of the whole town?
Yes.
Like some of the major, like all the houses that have so much visual value.
Well,
to
we have a
them.
lot of that copy, we have 500 of them already listed in the state.
Okay.
As an inventory of resources, and then we have we have plaquing of houses that doesn't really save them, but I think this is what we're working on that goes on with what you're saying, is that I think it's very important that we keep a sense of the fact that the town is an old town and it's small and it reflects every period architecturally, because that's what's around you in your eyes all the time, and it comes into your brain when you see the Victorian go down, which was such a sad situation.
Right.
But you have to have a little bit of every style, and that goes to a Richard Meyer house. This, I think, could be very much in danger right now.
Really?
So, well, because people
Where
are
is
looking
that?
at,
I
it's
wasn't
right,
even
it's
aware
on
of that.
Chenemere, and it's
Okay.
right behind me, and there are people, new stuff is coming in there. So I'm worried about that, and it's the one that used to be across from Noble Brothers. It's the Johnson House. It's a contemporary house.
Yeah.
But we have another one coming up here, right here, that's gonna be going on to an auction, a bank auction, which means they can't sell it. This is at 38 Goodwives River Road, and they have enough land to have a developer buy that and then do the same things, let it help. And it will be another house gone down, and this is April 30th, and it's a bank auction. And they're very funny about it. Has anyone dealt with a real estate bank auction? They don't tell you much about it. You can't you can't really find out much about it. I did get the picture of this on the Connecticut Preservation website. They have something called a historic building exchange. And so I put that on it, but I was told that I should not say anything, publicly. It's only going to be held by the lawyers, and they don't want to have anyone influencing the sale in any way. But I do think I want to pass word
Oh, you just did.
about it. I do,
Just
I'm sorry.
Yeah, were you being recorded?
No, wait a
Well,
minute.
I will say, so I don't wanna go off, I mean, now we're getting into residential, I know that is not our
That's
mandate.
not our-
No,
Yeah,
this is not
but
our mandate. I'm sorry.
It's
I
good
just
to
wanna
consider, I
mention-
mean, you bring up some good, we all bring up some good points about, it sounds like in general, like, I think our board is very sensitive to like, finding looks in different periods and maintaining those as best we can. And actually, something in the POCD said, when given the opportunity, try to, actually, that's what I wanted to read you guys, something to remember, when given the opportunity,
Write it on the whiteboard, please.
right.
The meeting is closed, isn't it? Shall
No,
we-
it's
No,
not.
let's close it so we can chat.
No, okay.
Let's close it.
But I think it's good on record that people go on record and express that we have,
While you're looking for everything, it just popped in my head. I think what's really interesting about this is our town is really young. Our town has always been very young. But I do think we very frequently forget that our town is young, and those moms with 4 kids, because we like to procreate at the same rate as the state of Utah in Darien. We are definitely the Fairfield 4 over here, and I do think that like being more hospitable to young families is part of what like makes Darien great, and I think that's like something that we need to continue to focus on. I for sure feel like doing that and then having more kids, more spaces, more places for us to go, me being one of the people with many children, does add character to the town, right? And I do think when it's unfriendly to walk around with your kids, or it's unfriendly to go into a restaurant, or it's or Grove, you know, I love what Corbin is doing, but I really very strongly feel that the Darien Summer Nights should be in Tilly Pond and not in Grove because it's too small of a space and it's not friendly for kids. I think if that was a town event that was then in Tilly Pond, and you have like push-pull parades, you see all these families that you don't see walking around town. Why? Because it's not friendly and hospitable to
Really?
those.
Well, what about the
children.
Ziegler
Yeah, that's
property?
what I was about to say.
Oh,
I mean, yeah,
we need
that's,
that.
But we don't need to talk about
need
that. That's not on the-
That's
No,
not-
but I'm
okay.
saying, but we do have beaches, we have quite a few beaches that are open, and we do have Cherry Lawn. I mean, it's not a town that doesn't have many parks, really, I
But
don't
that goes back to what we said at the beginning, Darien, one of the mandates is to create a pedestrian-friendly sense of place.
Right.
Oh my God, that's what
I
is
don't
drawing.
think
How
it's
much
Well,
of
that's-
this should or can be communicated to zoning? Because we work in the world of, we see a developed plan and we can comment on, you know, the aesthetics of how it looks, but as far as the building envelope, that obviously is something totally separate, but part of this is certainly more related to what is allowable by zoning, right, planning and zoning. So
Yeah, Federal Realty was allowed by zoning.
right, so using
They
that
are-
as an example, and we see how large that is actually going up, and the height of that elevation along the street, no matter how well we could help design that, that height is what it is, and therefore should it be that, should there potentially be something that, you know, limits, you know, that, I'm blanking on the right term, but, you know, the straight wall elevation height along the road.
Like vertical setbacks or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
planning and zoning designs the whole town architecturally, there's no doubt about
Should
it.
there be more
There are
communication? Should
regulations.
there be something from us,
Maybe
some
more.
communication, some meeting to say, we're taking the time to focus on this document, we have these ideas.
Well, I think that was kind of my goal in bringing this up, like when we are reviewing applications, when we write our letters to planning and zoning, I mean, they take what our recommendations seriously, so I don't know how federal went, let's put that aside, but like moving forward, keeping this in mind about like now that we've seen some things we like, some things we don't like, we can make those recommendations and say, even though this is allowable in the zone and this meets all the setbacks, we do not feel like this fits with the character of our town for X
Right.
reason. We can be and should be making those recommendations. And if we're not gonna do it, no one's gonna do
You
it.
got it.
So that's my big takeaway. And by the way, the other one is, one of our policies here is written in the guide, hired by consultant, every 4 years, Darien hires a consultant to rework this POCD, and the fifth one is to promote the preservation or adaptive reuse of any existing building when possible. I find that one very intriguing, I love that. But yes, Dave, I think that should be part of it, and I love that you said that, it's a great way to summarize
Yes.
this conversation possibly.
Yeah, because you know, we're seeing these semi-finished products, and again, we can, you know, make really good recommendations, and I think we do, you know, improve these projects quite a bit when they come through us, but, you know, we're at a stage where we're somewhat limited in the overall impact that we can have, so whether it's, you know, pushing to create more open spaces instead of, you know, a parking lot, that, you know, there's reasons why developers do what they do, I get it, you know, I live somewhat in that world as well. You know, there's you know, reasons why things are done to make money off of a project, but that's not to say that, you know, there can't be a bit more of a compromise, and maybe the way that the, you know, zoning regulations are right now, could there be some minor adjustments that help us get to the goal of that document? to see that maybe, planning and zoning, it doesn't even realize is, something that could be changed to, benefit kind of everybody across the board. Are they looking at that the way that we are and saying, here's what our goals really should be? Are we achieving those?
I think it's a question of the amount of authority that this board has in relationship to the planning commission. And
Right.
Advisory.
if a non-recommendation
Keyword.
is still possible to override.
But
it's
they
a-
listen
it's a-
sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Heavy advisory.
Yeah.
If it's not
Weighted
just advisory, but it's regulatory, then it changes everything.
Yeah, it does change everything.
I think it has to be a collaboration between us and planning and zoning to say, here's what we're seeing, we have these
Right.
recommendations for you to
Yeah.
make a change on your end.
Yeah.
Right.
So that there is a limitation by the time it gets to us. And I mean, there's a lot of detail in what
Well,
that
we have to get
should
back
be,
to
but,
them now and then.
what we're talking
That'll be
about.
interesting.
I think it's on our minds, as one just, moving forward, as we continue to see, hopefully we can do see more development projects. Or not hopefully, but when we do, hopefully we have this in mind, and we can make stronger recommendations and feel just like, looking back at federal, I would raise my hand and say, wow, botched that one personally, didn't stand up enough, I should have really said something more. But I don't know we felt that we could say something, and I think we,
It's a fine line, right? I mean,
it is a fine line.
It is.
But it is our
Property rights
job
and-
though, as architect review board, to make those recommendations, and it's planning and zoning's job then to decide how those relate to the regulations they have to work within or and adjust those.
And I think you just gotta wait for federal, that project to
Calm down.
be fully realized. Because what you're seeing now is
It's not-
infrastructure, you're seeing, just really raw portions of the building process. So the scale on any build goes up and down, So yeah, you're seeing a lot of mass now. You have to wait for the details and the other fine points to work
And
through.
all the retails at the base, I mean, they're very collaborative, I mean, as mentioned.
Yeah,
I met with
they are,
Julie,
yes.
and, we looked at all the different stores, there's still a lot of options to try to animate the bottom part and create some variety, which really right now you don't see because you see all the sticks, right? So that'll be,
Big sticks,
Right.
little sticks.
All right, well, good conversation, thanks guys for having it.
Alright,
that's good
shall
to
we?
have
8:48 PM, that close the meeting, we can adjourn. All right, thank you. Thank you, 79.
thank you all.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, David.